I want it to be meaningful. It doesn't mean it gets all done at one meeting. Maybe you have to have a second or a third, and maybe we'll have none. But it's in good hands.
President Donald Trump says meetings in New York with a delegation from North Korea are going well. So well that the Vice Chairman Kim Jong-chol is now planning to travel to Washington to deliver a personal letter from Chairman Kim Jong-un. Good evening from Washington, D.C. Thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. The president wouldn't say whether a deal is taking shape, but a high-ranking State Department official says both the U.S. and North Korea have now laid out what they want from a potential summit. Correspondent Wyatt Goolsbee reports from the State Department. Good evening, Wyatt.
Good evening, Lauren. Secretary Pompeo says his meetings today with a top North Korean official went well and that they made good progress. They're trying to salvage that on-again, off-again summit between President Trump and the North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un. Secretary Pompeo meets in New York for the second day of talks with Kim Jong-chol. He's the highest-ranking North Korean official to visit the U.S. in nearly 2 decades. The secretary saying on Twitter, the potential summit between POTUS and Chairman Kim presents North Korea with a great opportunity to achieve security and economic prosperity. The people of North Korea can have a brighter future, and the world can be more peaceful. But Kim Jong-un may have complicated talks after he complained to Russia's foreign minister about U.S. global dominance. Sergei Lavrov, for his part, says sanctions against North Korea should be lifted as part of the ongoing discussions. Daniel Davis, a North Korea expert, says Russia is trying to flex their muscle.
Russia's entering this from a position of weakness because they have historic and long-standing ties with North Korea. They want to make sure that their influence in the region throughout Northeast Asia is taken care of and is also, they don't lose influence, but they are losing influence.
South Korean media are speculating that Pompeo could soon make a third trip to Pyongyang. The former CIA chief traveled there twice in recent weeks. He says there's a shared understanding between the two sides about what they hope to achieve in talks.
One ought to be either surprised or frightened or deterred by moments where it looks like there are challenges and difficulties, things that can't be bridged. Our mission is to bridge them so that we can achieve this historic outcome.
Pompeo also confirms that Kim Jong-chol will be able to go to Washington tomorrow to deliver a letter to President Trump from North Korea's leader as well, although he did say today also that he's not sure if the summit happens, if it will happen exactly on June 12th as it was originally planned. Lauren.
Wyatt, North Korea's biggest ally and trading partner is China. How is China reacting to a potential summit?
Well, Lauren, Chinese officials are all in favor of the summit. They're calling on the United States to keep the on-planned June 12th date. And China has played, of course, a big role in all this in bringing North Korea to the table. They say this meeting is actually key to getting the North Koreans to giving up their nuclear weapons. Lauren.
Correspondent Wyatt Goolsbee reporting from the State Department. Joining me now is Dean Cheng, Senior Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Dean, welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me. Russian
Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov made a rare appearance in North Korea. What influence are those conversations having on a U.S.-North Korea summit?
That's a good question. Obviously, the Russians are playing a lot of different cards, and they typically playing them close to the vest. But looking at how Putin has operated around the world, he is almost certainly there to act as a spoiler, not as a facilitator. Russia has opened up fiber optic lines into North Korea. It has warned the U.S. to suspend military exercises. I think that the Russians are basically trying to curry favor with North Korea because they are trying to gain influence, not only at the expense of the United States, but also at the expense of China.
What concern does the U.S. have about exposing South Korea and our allies like Japan to a greater Chinese influence?
Well, the U.S. and China are engaged in a great power competition for influence over Northeast Asia. The Chinese have been pressuring the South Koreans to dilute their military commitment with the United States. They've really turned on the pressure to try and get South Korea to stop deploying the THAAD missile defense system. And Chinese-Japanese relations have generally been pretty much on the cool side. for most of Prime Minister Abe's term and the last several Chinese leaders. So Chinese forces are regularly flying into Japanese airspace. There's a lot of tension going on right now, aside from North Korea, in that part of the world.
The U.S. wants, quote, and this is what Secretary Pompeo said, the complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. How likely is that ever to happen, no matter if there is a summit or not?
Well, that's been the American position since 1994 and the agreed framework. Obviously, when you have one of the most opaque societies on Earth, it's going to be extraordinarily difficult. That is presumably why we need the president and the North Korean leadership to be talking to each other. But honestly, I'm not particularly optimistic.
Earlier this week, I spoke with U.S. Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom, that's Sam Brownback, about the State Department's latest religious freedom report and North Korea's troubling record. Here's how he described conditions there.
It's a terrible situation for way too many people there, and it's hardest particularly on the Christians in North Korea.
How does Pompeo's position in an administration committed to advancing global religious freedom help or hurt these negotiations?
Well, I think that one of the things that is important, especially for prisoners of conscience in places like North Korea, is to know that they are not forgotten. And if the president, if Secretary Pompeo, if American negotiators bring this issue up, it is a signal to North Korea that we're not simply in this for complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization. Even if you do that, that does not alleviate you from fulfilling your other obligations of basic human right.
Dean Chang, Senior Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation, thank you for joining us.